Imagine dropping over £1,000,000 on a brand new, highly anticipated premium motorcycle, right?
Right.
Only to find out the manufacturer deliberately used 1960s engine cooling technology.
Yeah, it's wild. It creates this deliberate cognitive dissonance, you know?
Welcome to today's deep dive, where we're putting you, our ever-curious listener, right in the saddle. We have a massive stack of sources to get through today.
We really do. We're pulling from automotive comparison sites, historical model breakdowns, and even some detailed Philippine Expressway guides.
And all this material is circling around one truly fascinating machine, the Ducati Scrambler 1100. Specifically, we're tracing its evolution from the 2018 and 2019 models all the way up to the top-tier 2026 Sport PRO edition.
Because, I mean, you look at this thing and you're seeing a vintage, stripped-down aesthetic, but you're paying modern superbike money for it.
Exactly. It's very easy for a casual observer to dismiss this whole category as just like a triumph of marketing over substance.
Oh, for sure. People do it all the time.
Which is why our mission today is not just to sit here and read a spec sheet to you. We want to understand the psychology behind this purchase.
Right. Like, why are writers shelling out upward of 1.1 million Philippine pesos for a bike that purposefully avoids looking modern?
We are going to decode the appeal of the whole neo-retro motorcycle trend, figure out how this specific bike balances old-school aesthetics with, modern engineering.
And ultimately help you figure out if this style of machine is a genuine masterpiece of design or just an incredibly overpriced nostalgia trip.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because before we can properly judge how the Scrambler 1100 rides today, we have to understand the specific gap in the market it was built to fill.
Yeah, and to do that, we have to look back at its lineage.
Right.
The lineage is really the foundation of the bike's whole identity. The Scrambler name goes all the way back to the 1960s and 70s.
It was essentially the original crossover vehicle, wasn't it?
Exactly. It was a rugged, stylish, dual-purpose motorcycle. You could ride it to a cafe in the city, but it had enough ground clearance and a rugged enough suspension that you could take it down a dirt road without destroying the bike.
Fast forward to 2015, and Ducati revived that iconic nameplate with an 800cc model. And our sources show that 800cc version was just a massive runaway hit.
Oh, absolutely massive. It brought a completely new, often younger demographic into the Ducati ecosystem.
But, the motorcycle world is notoriously restless. Riders loved the style and the accessibility of the 800, but once they gained experience, they kind of started hitting a feeling.
They wanted more grunt. They wanted premium suspension components. I mean, they wanted more sophistication across the board.
Basically, they were begging Ducati for a more grown-up version of the Scrambler, and that demand is exactly what birthed the 1100 in 2018.
Precisely. And the heart of this machine, the thing that really separates it from the pack, is the engine. You are looking at a 1079cc air-cooled Desmodromic L-twin engine.
Okay, wait, let's break that down for the listener, because Desmodromic sounds like something out of a sci-fi movie.
Yeah, it's a very Ducati term. So in a standard motorcycle engine, valves let the fuel in and the exhaust out, and they use metal springs to snap shut.
Right, standard stuff.
But at very high RPM, springs can sometimes fail to close fast enough. It's a problem called valve float. So Ducati's Desmodromic system doesn't use springs at all.
Wait, really? No springs?
None. It uses mechanical arms to physically pull the valves closed.
Oh, wow. So instead of relying on the tension of a spring, it's a hard physical mechanism forcing the valve shut every single time.
Exactly. It allows for incredibly precise engine timing. And as a byproduct, it creates this very specific mechanical clatter that is entirely unique to Ducati.
It's like a badge of honor for the brand.
It really is. And when you combine that with the L-twin configuration, which is just a V-twin engine tilted forward so it looks like an L, you get a very specific power delivery.
Let's talk numbers. It pushes out 86 horsepower at 7,500 RPM. But the crucial number is the torque, right?
Yes, 88 Newton meters of torque, delivered at a highly accessible 4,750 RPM.
And that torque figure changes the whole dynamic of the ride. Upgrading from the 800cc to this 1100cc isn't just about achieving a higher top speed.
No, not at all.
It's like upgrading from a standard smartphone to the Pro version.
Yeah.
You get it because you want that heavy-duty processing power and the premium materials.
That's a great way to put it. Because the peak torque arrives so early at 4,750 RPM, you don't have to wring its neck to get moving.
You don't have to rev the engine to the absolute limit. The power is just sitting right there in the mid-range where you actually use it on a city street.
Right. And they wrapped all that mechanical muscle in a very deliberate design. The sources highlight the exposed steel trellis frame.
Which is another classic Ducati hallmark.
Yeah, a trellis frame is essentially a cage of interconnected steel tubes. Instead of using massive, heavy, solid beams of metal, it uses geometric triangles to create structural stiffness while keeping the weight down.
It functions almost like a bridge truss. And on the Scrambler, it's completely exposed. It becomes a major visual element.
It's beautiful, and you pair that exposed cage with a sculpted 15-liter fuel tank featuring interchangeable aluminum panels.
Plus those dual underseat exhausts that give the rear end this really aggressive, muscular silhouette. And an 810 millimeter seat height that actually keeps the bike pretty approachable for a lot of riders.
It's a very striking package.
But, okay, as much as I appreciate the aesthetics, I have to push back on Ducati's engineering philosophy here.
Oh, okay. Let's hear it.
You mentioned earlier that this is a 1079cc engine making 36 horsepower. If these experienced riders demanded a flagship high-performance upgrade from the 800, why on earth did Ducati stick with an old-school air-cooled engine?
Ah, I see where you're going with this.
I mean, if they used a modern liquid-cooled engine, they could easily squeeze 130 or 140 horsepower out of a liter-class bike. Why intentionally handicap your own spec sheet?
What's fascinating here is that the air-cooled engine isn't a technological limitation. It is a highly calculated psychological design choice.
Really? How so?
Well, you have to consider what liquid cooling actually requires physically. It requires a large radiator mounted to the front of the bike, thick rubber hoses running everywhere, and a water pump.
Right, all of that plumbing clutters up the engine bay.
Exactly. By stubbornly sticking to air cooling, Ducati preserves the authentic, raw, uncluttered visual of a 1960s machine. The engine remains a piece of mechanical sculpture.
So they're essentially sacrificing raw horsepower just to hide the plumbing. That is a massive commitment to a visual theme.
It is. And furthermore, liquid jackets filled with coolant wrap around modern engine cylinders, which actually dampens the internal engine noise.
Oh, I never thought about that.
Yeah, an air-cooled engine is louder, it sounds more alive, it amplifies that unique desmodromic clatter and gives the exhaust a much throatier note.
So they're making a deliberate choice to prioritize the character, the sound, and the visual soul of the motorcycle over, squeezing out the maximum possible horsepower on a laboratory dyno chart.
That's exactly it.
Okay, so Ducati deliberately chose the character and raw sound over the clinical efficiency of liquid cooling. But that romantic choice has a physical consequence when that massive hot engine meets the real world.
It certainly does.
Let's translate these specs onto the roads of the Philippines. Because having a beautiful engine is great in theory, but how does it actually behave?
Well, looking at the Philippine Expressway guidelines, the 1100cc displacement immediately solves the biggest hurdle for riders here.
Right, it's well above the 400cc minimum requirement, so this bike is fully expressway legal.
Yes, you have full unrestricted access to the NLEX, SLEX, Skyway Stage 3, and CLX.
And from a practical standpoint, it's classified as a Class 1 vehicle. That means you're paying the same toll rates as a standard sedan, and it seamlessly integrates with standard auto sweep and easy trip RFID tags for uninterrupted travel.
It makes highway travel super easy.
But let's look at the economics of running a massive T79cc engine. With a 15-liter tank, our sources indicate fuel economy sits around 15 to 20 kilometers per liter.
Which is a key metric.
Yeah, and if we run the math for you right now, assuming an average gasoline price of roughly 62.50 per liter, you are looking at spending about 3.13 to a 4.17 per kilometer in fuel costs.
For anyone considering this as a daily transportation option, that's vital. I mean, 15 to 20 kilometers per liter might sound painfully inefficient if you compare it to like 150cc commuter scooter that gets 45 kilometers to the liter.
Yeah, it's less than half the efficiency.
But within the realm of liter-class high-performance motorcycles, it's actually a completely standard efficiency rate.
It's the cost of entry for having that much grunt on tap. But diving into the user reviews, a really vivid picture emerges of what it feels like to ride this daily.
What do the reviews say?
On the positive side, riders love the sheer presence of the bike. And critically, they praise its high-speed stability. Cruising at 80 to 100 kilometers per hour on the Skyway feels incredibly planted.
A big factor there is the 206-kilogram curb weight. It's substantial enough that crosswinds don't bat you into the next lane, but it still maintains enough agility to weave through slower traffic.
But the negative reviews are impossible to ignore, along with complaints about the high price tag and a lack of touring tech like cruise control or a quick shifter. The loudest complaint by far is engine heat in heavy traffic.
Which brings us directly back to the thermodynamics of that air-cooled engine design.
Right.
Air cooling relies entirely on the forward motion of the motorcycle to physically push ambient air over the cooling fins on the cylinders. If you lose that forward momentum, you lose your cooling.
And here's where I struggle with the practicality. It's like driving a classic convertible. It's thrilling, but you feel the elements.
Yeah.
If I'm paying 1.1 million pesos for a premium vehicle, shouldn't it be comfortable everywhere?
You would think so, but
I mean, if you get stuck in stop-and-go traffic on EDSA in the middle of April, that engine heat has absolutely nowhere to go but straight up into your thighs. With users complaining about fuel economy and engine heat, is this really a daily commuter or just an expensive weekend toy for the canyons?
that is the harsh reality check that buyers of air-cooled liter bikes eventually face. You can commute on it, but you are using the tool outside of its intended environment.
It's not a Swiss Army knife.
Exactly. It's not designed for maximum comfort in gridlock. It is a purpose-built machine that was designed to shine on open, flowing expressways and winding weekend roads where the air is rushing over the engine and that torque can actually be utilized.
Okay, so if we establish that it is a premium expressway-capable machine that demands open roads, we have to look at the competition.
Oh, absolutely.
Because if you have a budget of over 1 million pesos, you're shopping in elite territory. You have options. And you cannot deeply analyze the Ducati Scrambler 1100 without putting it head-to-head with its biggest rival, the BMW R nineT.
It is the defining rivalry in the neo-retro space. The passion of Italy versus the precision of Germany.
Let's run the tail of the tape. We're matching the top-tier Ducati Scrambler 1100 Sport PRO against the standard BMW R nineT. First up, the financial impact.
Okay, hit me with the numbers.
The Ducati sits at 1.1 million. The BMW is notably more expensive, coming in at 1.315 million. That is a $215,000 premium for the German machine.
The immediate question for the buyer is, what tangible benefit does that extra 250,000 pesos buy you?
Well, it buys you raw, unadulterated power. The Ducati gives you 179 cc with 86 horsepower and 88 newton-meters of torque. But the BMW utilizes a massive 1170cc flat twin boxer engine boasting 110 horsepower and 116 newton-meters of torque.
Wow.
Yeah, it easily hits a top speed of 200 kilometers per hour. On paper, the BMW completely obliterates the Ducati in a straight line.
But the Ducati mounts a massive counterattack when it comes to the chassis and suspension setup.
Right, let's talk about that.
The Scrambler 1100 Sport PRO features premium Ohlins upside-down front forks and an Ohlins monoshock at the rear. The standard BMW R nineT, on the other hand, just uses a conventional telescopic fork and a standard swing arm rear.
And regarding weight, they share a similar footprint, but the Ducati is noticeably lighter, 206 kilograms, versus the BMW's 222 kilograms. Also, some of the older or base R nineT models lack traction control, though they both feature ABS.
It creates a fascinating philosophical split in how the two manufacturers approach the segment. The BMW prioritizes sheer engine output, while the Ducati invests heavily in suspension sophistication and weight reduction.
Here's where it gets really interesting, because the horsepower gap is genuinely massive, 110 versus 86.
It's a big difference, yeah.
If you're a rider who is already perfectly comfortable dropping over 1 million pesos on a motorcycle, money probably isn't the tightest object. So I have to ask, shouldn't you just bite the bullet, pay the extra $215,000 for the BMW, and get the significantly faster, more powerful machine?
If we connect this to the bigger picture, we have to recognize what currency actually matters in the neo-retro segment. It's not top speed.
Really? Power isn't everything.
No, because if your primary goal is to go 200 kilometers per hour, you just buy a dedicated aerodynamic sport bike for half the price. In this specific category, the currency is tactile feel, agility, and how the bike behaves in a corner.
So the BMW's horsepower figures are kind of a flex, but maybe not the whole story.
Exactly. Let's look at the Ducati's 86 horsepower. Out on the SLEX, 86 horsepower is more than enough to execute aggressive, high-speed overtakes safely. The bike will never feel slow.
True.
But where the Ducati justifies its existence against the heavier, more powerful BMW is when the highway ends and the twisty mountain roads begin.
And that comes down to those Ohlins upside-down forks on the Sport PRO. Let's actually explain why upside-down forks matter.
Sure, go for it.
On a standard motorcycle fork, the thick, heavy metal tube is at the bottom, attached to the wheel. But an upside-down fork flips that. It attaches the thick, heavy tube to the frame of the bike, and the lighter, thinner tube attaches to the wheel.
Which fundamentally changes the physics of the front end. By reducing the weight attached directly to the wheel, what engineers call unsprung mass, The front wheel can react to bumps and imperfections in the road much faster.
It's so much more responsive.
And additionally, clamping the thicker part of the tube at the top makes the entire front end significantly more rigid under heavy braking and aggressive cornering.
So it's a choice between Bavarian flat twin muscle and Italian L-twin agility. The BMW feels heavy and incredibly fast in the straight line, but the Ducati dances. It has that 16-kilogram weight advantage, top-tier suspension, and that signature Desmo sound.
Precisely. Specs alone simply cannot quantify how a lighter motorcycle with superior suspension makes you feel when you confidently lean it into a tight turn.
But there's another layer to this Ducati that really surprised me during our research. Because while it might look like a vintage machine and proudly rock an old-school air-cooled engine, it is hiding an absolute arsenal of digital technology beneath that retro bodywork.
It is an incredible juxtaposition. It is arguably one of the most technologically advanced retro motorcycles currently on the market.
The analogy that perfectly captures this bike is high-end fashion. Buying the Scrambler 1100 is exactly like buying a bespoke, classic wool suit, but the inside of the jacket is secretly lined with Kevlar.
I love that analogy.
On the outside, you look traditional, but underneath it performs like cutting-edge armor. Let's talk about that armor. First, the stopping power. It utilizes dual 320mm front discs squeezed by Brembo M4.32 monoblock calipers and a 245mm rear disc.
Those are serious brakes.
Right, but the real magic is the digital brain controlling them, the Ducati Safety Pack, which includes Bosch dual-channel cornering ABS.
Which is a massive leap forward in safety technology, particularly for riding in an environment like the Philippines, where a dry road can suddenly become a wet, slippery hazard around a blind corner.
To understand how big of a deal this is, picture yourself taking a sharp, sweeping curve. You're leaned over, and suddenly you spot a patch of gravel.
Terrifying.
If you panic and grab a handful of brake on a vintage bike, your front wheel is going to wash out and you are going to crash. But this bike calculates your exact lean angle in real time. If you grab the brake while leaned over, the computer instantly modulates the braking pressure,
Ensuring the tire maintains traction so you can safely stop mid-corner without sliding out. It is literal life-saving tech.
And the invisible armor doesn't stop there. The bike features a ride-by-wire throttle. There's no physical steel cable connecting your wrist to the engine.
Which is the gateway technology that allows Ducati to program 3 distinct riding modes: active for sport riding, journey for touring, and city for dampened power in urban environments.
It just changes how the throttle responds and how much the safety systems intervene. Add in a 4-stage Ducati traction control system, a fully digital LCD instrument cluster, full LED lighting, and even an under-seat USB charging port.
It's loaded.
But here's where I have to ask the philosophical question. Does having a computer constantly monitoring your lean angle, managing your throttle, and intervening with traction control, does having all these digital safety nets dilute the raw mechanical connection that riders want when they buy a retro Scrambler?
That is the most common critique leveled by purists. However, I'd argue that true, unadulterated retro bikes can actually be terrifyingly unpredictable to ride.
Because they have zero safety nets.
Right. A genuine vintage motorcycle with weak drum brakes and a flexible frame requires a level of hyper-vigilant, exhausting skill to manage safely in modern traffic. What this hidden technology does is it removes the terror from the nostalgia.
Oh, I see. So it democratizes the classic experience.
Yeah.
It makes it safe for modern traffic.
Precisely. It allows a rider to enjoy the aesthetic, the mechanical feel of the engine, and that desmodromic sound without the genuine risk of locking up a wheel in a rainy corner.
Which beautifully brings us to our summary of today's deep dive. Looking at our entire stack of sources, the Ducati Scrambler 1100 is a masterclass in calculated compromise.
It really is. It bridges the gap between old school, cool, and modern expressway practicality perfectly.
Will it have the outright horsepower of the BMW R nineT? No. Will it have the touring comforts of a modern adventure bike? Definitely not. But its L-twin torque, premium Ohlins suspension, and hidden safety tech make it an incredibly compelling, highly emotional purchase for the right rider.
It's a motorcycle that fondly prioritizes the tactile quality of the ride.
So what does this all mean? Ultimately, I think motorcycles like this prove that numbers on a spec sheet are only ever half the story.
Definitely.
The rest of the equation is purely about how the machine makes you feel when you open the throttle.
This raises an important question, though, when we look toward the future of motorcycles in this specific class.
Ooh, What's that?
Well, throughout the spec sheets in our sources, there are repeated mentions of Euro 5 emission standards. The massive air-cooled 1079cc engine in the Scrambler meets those strict environmental regulations, but just barely.
Oh, wow. I didn't think about that.
Yeah. As global emission laws inevitably become even stricter in the coming years, we have to ask, how much longer can manufacturers realistically continue to produce large displacement air-cooled engines?
So there is a ticking clock on this entire style of engineering.
There is. Are we currently looking at the absolute final generation of authentic air-cooled L-twins? It's highly probable that soon, strict environmental laws will force all retro bikes to adopt modern, less characterful liquid cooling systems.
Or worse, go entirely electric.
Exactly. The window for you to experience this kind of raw mechanical history might be closing a lot faster than we think.
That is a fascinating and somewhat bittersweet thought to leave you on. A true masterpiece of mechanical design, living on borrowed time. We hope you enjoyed this deep dive, and we will catch you on the next one.